Back from the break here, talking about longevity with Dr. Tom Butler, and we're talking about, Tom, so many things, diet and exercise factors in there, genetics factors in there, calorie restriction, but one that's right up at the top of the list is being happy, and being happy is a fairly relative term, is it not? I mean, what makes you happy may not make me happy. They did a study on a roller coaster, I read this in the 90s, where they put people on a roller coaster side by side, monitored them the whole time. A group of people hated roller coasters, despised them, made them paranoid. The other group loved them. So they take them on the ride, they measure them before and after. After the ride, the people that love roller coasters, endorphin levels through the roof, all the good markers are up, all the bad markers are down. Just the opposite for the people who hated roller coasters. Their cortisol levels were spiked, they were crazed, they were stressed, their blood pressure was up, didn't come down for a day. So the same ride, it was the same ride. It was just the way we look at it. And that's kind of life as a whole, is it not? I mean, it's how you take life in a lot of cases. We could both be on the same ride, but if you take it negatively, I take it positively, then the outcome is radically different, is it not? I mean, as far as the responses.
Well, we were talking about that, just the pure statistics that they're doing. That there's actually studies in every country, and they're trying to monitor how happy are we. So one of the things they're doing on the Facebook, there's like 69 million users, and there's like 4 billion tweets, but they code each word has like plus numbers or minus numbers, so happy or sad. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. In the last 3 years, there's like a steady downward descent of the amount of happiness that's being twittered. And I thought it was so interesting. The top 3 sadness were, one of them was when Michael Jackson died.
Huh.
Yeah.
And then there was
the death of Bin Laden was the worst. So why would I have no idea, Todd?
Why people would be sad in those days?
Yeah.
But they're monitoring this and based on tweets and what people are saying.
Yeah.
And then in turn, again, it equates to not only long-term happiness, but very much short-term as well, because the markers that happen, we know this, when we're loved, we have these, you can do it with babies, the studies that they've done with babies, that they've just placed in a warmer and left them there, as opposed to holding them and touching them. It makes a lot of difference in the outcome of the happiness of that baby, how they feel, all of these things. So it's extremely important. The happiness factor is almost dependent on other people, is it not? I mean, you're in some ways, yes, you have to have your own set thoughts and saying I'm happy, but you also cannot be. Other people are factoring in there, and other situations are factoring in there. But it is ultimately how you take it.
It's complicated, so let's admit to that. But we talked a little bit before the show. I hate to bring people up to our speed, but anyway, the thing is, 50% of the happy people is basically, that's their set point. So in other words, they have the bad things happen to them too, but instead of just dragging it around with them, like an ugly old thing, they fall back to their level of happiness. They don't just stay down. And some of that is genetics. But the other thing, look at this season. Today it's so cloudy. So some people are actually reliant on some sunshine to make them happy. They call it seasonal affective disorder.
Right, sad.
Yeah, so 6% have a pretty clinical problem. 20% have a mild case. And some of the answers to that is just be in the sun or have a lot of light in your house. Those are pretty simple techniques. And, that's just relying on knowing that that's a factor. Now, let's go further, Todd. Let's say you're sad and you feel like you want to harm yourself, or you go into that. You need professional help.
Yes.
So you're not going to treat everybody with just flashing lights in your house. But for the people that have that, and if you stop it at this level, it doesn't affect your life and your ability and your relationships. You'll stop it before it snowballs into a terrible situation.
Yes, and the deeper it goes, obviously, the longer it takes to come around. Momentum, once that momentum is hitting in that direction, then
it could take months of sunlight if you deviate from your ability to be by the sunlight. Right. It could take months to build back.
And the sun, of course, it's vitamin D3. A lot of the things that we know that, but it's not just that. It's not just the D3 production from sunshine. It's the sunshine itself. It's love and warmth that you get from it. I mean, there's is undoubtedly a part of that as well. Then there's so many, like you said, so many factors. But there's no doubt that being happy is a part of it, and you control that for the most part, but no doubt as well there are things that can make you happy that involve other people, scenes, places that you can go, the experiences that you can experience that make you happy, that ultimately add to your life and add years to your life. And I remember you saying before the break, 10 years, it could add 10 years to your life. That's dramatic, and it could probably also cut time off if you're pessimistic or negative or unhappy. I'm sure the opposite is true as well.
I like Abraham Lincoln. He says, you're about as happy as you make up your mind to be.
That's exactly right. And interestingly enough, that is what it boils down to, is that you can choose that the way you want to be. Now, when we talk about the overall longevity of life, happiness, there's also another factor they found in there as well, Tom, is having a pet, of all things. Owning a pet. And what is that? As happiness and love. You have a pet that you're caring for, and even goes back to what you said in the previous show, is that you're actually giving something to that pet. You're having to take care of it. And the nurturing of it is something that adds the happiness to your life as well, and gives you a sense of satisfaction and accomplishment and a relationship with that animal. I know that we milk cows on our farm, and I noticed that, and I had one lady one time say, well, I can't believe you're abusing animals like that. She was an animal rights person, and I gave her time to talk. But what she didn't understand is that these cows that I'm milking, I could see, on 1,000 head of cattle, they're running them through very quickly. I could see how that would be somewhat abuse. But now on a farm, when there's 2 cows that I'm milking by hand, and I bring them into a heated stall, they're eating grain, I'm washing them well, I'm hand milking them. Trust me, they're happy. They love it. They would much prefer that over a wild existence in nature somewhere, eating barks and twigs in the wintertime. I'm sure that they would prefer grain in a heated stall any day of the week. So yes, they're happy because they're being milked and they're being taken care of. And to me, it adds a lot of satisfaction in my life, because not only are they giving me food, but also too the whole process of caring for them and understanding their personalities and understanding about, and that's kind of how love is created in the first place, is spending time with people. You can't instantly love someone. You can't say, oh yeah, I love you. No, well, you draw near to someone, understand them more, get to know them more, and that's how love evolves, is by drawing near to those people. Not only people, but also pets as well. In fact, a lot of the times, the beauty of a pet is you can talk to them about all their problems, and they never talk back.
And they're always glad to see you.
They're always glad to see you, exactly right. And so they just sit there and say, oh, bless your heart, And so it is something that I think, again, it adds a kind of a distinct twist to this thing as far as longevity. We know marriage and a spouse and those type of things help, but a pet is a little different, because it is dependent on you. It is something that relationship is a lot different than a spouse would be, and even deeper in some levels than a spouse, because of the fact that animal can't. In fact, I think I heard a saying the other day that veterinarians make better doctors than doctors do, because the patient can't talk to them. They can't say anything. So whenever you're having to guess and look at that animal, and I know my cows, I've been milking for 20 years. I look at that cow and I can instantly tell you, oop, there's something wrong. Tell by the way they walk or whatever. So spending time over the decades, you get to know them so well, you can almost pick and you can see what's happening before it even happens. So it's interesting relationship there, and interesting.
That's
that
the most
pets
important. There's a Chinese saying. It says, if you want to make a person happy for an hour, you take a nap. If you want to be happy for a day, you take them fishing. Mm-hmm. If you want to be happy for 6 months or a year, you give them some money. Mm-hmm. But if you want to make them happy forever, you give them something they can take care of.
Yes.
So
interesting. And why? Because, again, showing that love is better to give than receive. And by
you
giving
do
that,
receive.
And you do receive by, exactly.
Like I told you, it's hard to get a hug if you don't give one.
And if you don't have somebody to hug.
Yeah.
And if you make them mad, then you're certainly not going to have anybody to hug. But interestingly enough as well, Tom, is that the other thing that I found that I think would be interesting to bring up here is that one of the latest things that they found are people who keep up, and it goes back to the tweeting thing to some degree probably as well, is people that keep up with modern events and what's going on in the world, and not necessarily just watching the news, but because we all have different forms now. There's so many forms of being able to keep the internet, and you know, I get a lot of my news from the comedy people, you know, the Daily Show and those guys. So there's different forms, but they found that people who keep up with the current events live longer. Why would that be? Why? Because you're actually physically engaged. I guess maybe, in my opinion, and I'll let you give yours, but I think it would be the fact that they are concerned about today. They're concerned about today and tomorrow. So it kind of keeps them actively involved and engaged in today, as opposed to being sedentary and not worrying about what's going on in the world.
You have to be purposeful, and that's, you know that as well as I do. When you see a person who loses a bit of their purpose, or I hate to say this, I'm getting a little older, thinking about retirement sometime, maybe not. But anyway, you have to have a purpose, and if you don't, you're sort of planning to fail, because you need some reason to get up and get going. And these people that I'm sure are keeping up with the current events are keeping these up so that they can have a purposeful life, so they can add to the existence, not take away. They want to add, but to add, they're going to have to take in. So
Yes.
that would be my theory on that.
There was a guy at the St. Louis Zoo. Kathy and I went to the St. Louis Zoo and found it fascinating. There was a 75-year-old man there that was talking about giraffes and showing the bones and the different things to the kids, and he just had the kids eating out of his hand. And so here's a 75-year-old man that could have probably easily been retired and fishing or whatever.
Sure.
But why is he there? Because he loves it. The kids love it. They feed him. You could see he was just feeding off of it and getting so much from it. So, you know, that alone, and that's what I really feel like, that as in America, we kind of shun the elderly people. We throw this like they're 65, retire, and go play shuffleboard. In these older countries, these other countries, they actually revere their elderly. Why? Because they have so much information and so much knowledge. And so to me, I think in America, that's what we really should encourage, is the older people to go out and whatever they specialized in, whatever they were good in once they retired, go out and teach it. And that keeps them younger. And I'm sure it would add to the longevity factor as well, because they have a purpose, like you said.
Well, we talked about that earlier too. There's different models that they're, like I said, they're measuring this all over the world. In Denmark, they try to control everybody's contributions, but another thing they do is they try to make it easy for you to keep your parents in your house. So
Yes.
tax-wise, it's actually a benefit to keep the elderly with the family, and that they're one of the highest, happiest rated
Yes.
countries, and that is one
Because
of
the
them.
grandkids and the
Yes.
grandparents and all that are there together.
They're
spending so
helping the
much-
kids. The kids are helping them.
That is a huge, and that's very, very big in today's world for sure. And for the family as a whole, the family unit, it's
Right.
extremely important that all of those generations are there. So,
Every country that's in the highest level have the most revered. They have family ties. Strong
ties.
family ties.
How did I guess that? Well, folks, we'll come back and wrap this segment up. We want to talk a little bit more about the overall components in longevity and a few more things to add when we return from the break. Hang on. You're listening and watching to Understanding Your Health.